The topic that we are going to spend some time this weekend looking at is basically the topic of the explicit topic is the topic of dying, death. But then the Buddhist understanding of dying and death is inextricably tied to life and living. So it's not like dying and death is something separate from life and living. Hence, there's even a book which I recommend that you can download easily online. It's called "Living is Dying" by a very well-known Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche. Not easy to spell that all out if you're not familiar with Tibetan names, but if you look for this book, Google "Living is Dying." It is on sale as a book from Shambhala, but this teacher has also made it downloadable from his website called Siddhartha's Intent. But if you just download, if you just Google "Living is Dying," Dzongsa. So Javier, if you find that link, just share it on the Zoom chat. Javier can share that link on Zoom chat. And I think it's been translated into 14 languages, so there's probably a Spanish version as well. And for those of you who have friends who only read Spanish, share it with them. That is a good manual, really, for as someone is dying. And Rinpoche talks about well, if this person is Buddhist, if this person is not Buddhist, so he offers kind of different ways of, in a very practical way, whether for yourself or helping someone who is dying. And that book, I think, is just excellent. Of course, we never relate to any of these teachings as if, that's the last word on the subject. I like to emphasize this point that all of Buddha's teachings, and then those teachings as taught by different teachers, they are appropriate contextually, and some things apply more strongly to some situations than others. So I generally think that book is a really good volume, but also with the caveat that nothing, is the final word, because life, unfolds and death unfolds in ways that follow a certain pattern, but the details may not be identical. So likewise, for this weekend, what you're going to hear, what we're going to talk about and share, and I hope discuss, take them in the spirit of what are the general principles, what are the general foundational understandings and clarity that we should develop, and then be brave enough and responsible enough to apply those principles, to take into your heart and mind those principles, and let those principles start to guide the way that you live life, the way you experience life, as life unfolds, as death unfolds, and to be able to rely on these principles, these core understandings to help us navigate, as well as navigate, sounds like there's something fixed out there, we just have to navigate around. But the Buddhist view is not so much that there's something fixed out there and we just navigate. The Buddhist view also says, as we navigate, then what's out there also change in relationship to our navigating. So sometimes the analogy of the path, like our spiritual path, can be a little misleading. If we think of path as something that stays static, and that what we need to do is just to get on this path that is static and fix, and we navigate, all the obstacle course. But it's not actually like that. The analogy to our process of awakening, which is what path is, the analogy of path is emphasizing the necessity of walking on it, of taking the journey. Yeah? The analogy of path should not be misunderstood as the path between you and EBS Center is down this street, down that avenue, and it's fixed. It's not fixed in that way. I think in a way, even path, it's not fixed. Like today, these cars are on it. Another day, some other cars are on it, right? So this path unfolds as you navigate it. So it's dynamic, right? Now, the dynamism of the path, and for that matter, everything else, it's dynamic, it's changing, it's shifting, but not without rhyme or reason. They follow an underlying principle. Yeah? So there is what we call a fundamental nature as well. So this fundamental nature is not like a thing. This fundamental nature, you could say, I guess, another way to express this is like there is a set of principles that underlies all the variety that we are likely to encounter. And since it's not possible to teach the whole range of the variety, right? And even like pointless, because everyone's variety could just be so specific and to that person. So then to hope that, there's a book out there, there's a person out there, there's a religion out there, there's a spirituality out there that answer all the variety, I think it's just unreasonable to expect that. But the fundamental nature, the fundamental principles is what the Buddha has taught very clearly. The Buddha has also taught a number of these varieties. Sometimes the number is said to be 84,000. If you learn one variety a day, you still need 84,000 days. How many years is 84,000 days? Can someone quickly? I never really thought of it that way. How many years is 84,000 days?
230.
230 years. Okay, so none of us will be able to do it, even if we started on day one when we were born to learn the first Dharma. So in that sense, like mastering the 84,000, if you get 80 years, if you learn from the first day, you still need 3 lifetimes. But once we plumb into the fundamental nature of things, of experiences, of phenomena, of life, of death, once we plumb into the great matter, in some Buddhist sutras, it's called the great matter. That important matter issue. Once we plumb into that, once we're able to see that, not like a set of beliefs, not a set of beliefs. And there are lots of sets, those of you who have stuck around with Tibetan Buddhism long enough, there are lots of sets, lists of things that on the instructional level, it's a good pedagogy to learn lists and sets, but they are still fingers pointing to the moon. It's the moon that we have to behold. And once we have seen the moon, then we understand even more clearly the fingers, the lists, the sets. Then why do we need to understand more clearly the fingers and the sets? So that we can use that to help others see the moon. Until we actually see the moon, the sets, the lists, the fingers, we don't know exactly what the fingers are even. So then there we just need to know how to use the fingers. We should not spend too much time either, investigating the finger. We should, on this end of things, work more on, trying to see what these fingers are pointing at. Once we have a glimpse, at least, if not full view and stable view of what these fingers are pointing at, the proverbial moon, in seeing that moon, it will begin to very clearly illuminate all the fingers, and then you can understand everything about the fingers. Then at that point, it's useful to understand the fingers because you can then use that to guide others to see the moon. If in this process you get too hung up on wanting to know and to understand the ins and outs of the fingers, of the pointers, then you might not have enough time to actually see that moon. Yeah. So these are just some very general, but I think also important remarks to make as we participate, as we spend this weekend together to learn more this particular set of teachings. Then to anchor all of this, I have prepared some texts, which I think each of you got a copy of that. I'm always looking at texts and going, oh, this is good. And then, oh, wait, what happened here? So I realized that the formatting of the text I shared earlier, it's a little bit screwy. So, ta-da! There's another version that I just shared on the chat window, and some of you might not see it. I don't know why, but depending on what I think equipment you use to join Zoom, sometimes that chat window doesn't show documents that I shared. Doesn't matter because what I sent you, substance-wise, exactly the same as what you already got. But my neurotic, side cannot stand the the messy layout of the first version. So I fixed it, and now this is the second version. So, but substance-wise, it's exactly the same. Yeah, so don't worry about it. If you can't get this file later, we can send it to you if you want it. And then if you print out the last one, that one is just fine. So I've prepared a set of texts for us to look at as a reference point. So those are the lists, those are the sets of things. And it's important that we have that as a reference point. I feel that, sometimes people think, oh, you should just speak, It's easy to just speak. If we don't have something to anchor us, we don't know if we're still talking about the Buddha Dharma or not. It's so easy to just kind of talk about things and have no reference point, Is this grounded in what the sages of the past have, handed down? So having something to serve as a reference point is an important thing. Then more specifically, there is a technique, you can say, of practice, specific practice, found throughout all Tibetan Buddhist lineages, which is called Powa. Yeah, Powa is a specific, Powa as we normally know it now, if you go to Google and you type Powa, what it's going to bring up is a specific practice or technique that all lineages of Tibetan Buddhism have, which is the technique or the meditation practice to do at the time of death. Either you are lucid and aware enough and you have practiced this long enough so that at the time that you are dying, you will know to do this practice, or you are lucky enough to be with people who know this practice, who know you know this practice, and who will do it for you as you are kind of on your deathbed, or immediately post-death, others do it for you, or a great practitioner, even more powerfully, can do it to assist you, so that you can po. So now powa is now to po. In Tibetan, to po literally means to transfer, meaning to go from one place to another place. So that verb is actually a common verb for I'm going to go to Little Rock next week, is I'm going to po to Little Rock. I'm going to transfer. I'm going to transition from here to there. So the verb itself simply means to go. So there is a broader meaning of powa, which is sort of saying, where do you want to powa to? From here to the next place. Yeah, so you can say there's also powa in the sense of, like right now, if your mind is a little thinking, a little heavy, feeling a little claustrophobic, then you need to po into a different state of mind. So powa, in a broader meaning, it's about, in this transition from here to there, from now to later, how are you going to go? So to that degree, when we know how to go while we are healthy and alive and has dharma, our senses are intact, our ability to control the mind is easier than, say, when we're in a dream, right? So while we are in our waking hour, reasonably healthy body and mind, figuring out, do I have the ability to pull to where I want to go or not? That will tell us as much what to expect when body is not cooperating with mind anymore. Mind is not so tethered to body anymore. In fact, less tethered to the body cuts both ways, right? When the mind is less tethered, less bound to this body, it can go both ways, right? It's more flexible, but it's also more unpredictable and less controllable, which is what happens in the dying process. Body and mind has the link between body and mind becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. So it's both a time of greater opportunity as well as greater uncertainty. So then we ask, how do I now deal with uncertainty? Then that gives us a good clue that when the big journey starts, how we are going to do. How we deal with uncertainty now, how we deal with discomfort now, how we deal with things not going our way right now. It's a good preview of how we're going to be dealing with things when the body and the mind begin to go in separate directions. What we conventionally call lying on our deathbed as we are dying. We were not in, we didn't know much, couldn't do much at the first major event in our life, which is our birth. Now, are we going to repeat the, couldn't do much, don't know much at the second big event in our life? Obviously not. If you are here this morning, that means you have enough of an idea that, no, I don't want to attend the second most significant moment in my life in the same way I attended the first moment, the first big occasion. So there's the first big occasion, last big occasion, then yada, yada, yada in between. Most of us is all yada, yada, yada in between. But if we know what to do with the yada, yada in between, then we can make up for sort of missing the first big event and be truly present for the second big event. So, we were born, we will die, in between, this and that. In between this and that, for most of us, the in between, there's this and there's that. Sometimes can just feel like, in between. What do we have in between? Well, this morning I woke up. Why did you wake up? Well, basically, either your mind or your body got tired of sleeping. Right? Then woke up. As I'm learning now, as you get older and older, without choice, you will wake up. You're like, I want to sleep. No, sorry. Right? These are all just signs already. It's not cooperating with you, Then at night, I want to stay awake. No, sorry. Yeah. So basically, either body or mind got tired of sleeping. Then without choice, rudely, you get woken up. Then you stay awake until either body or mind decided, I'm tired of being awake. Then go to sleep. Then I'm tired of sleeping or napping. then I'm awake again. Then this is just one following the other, So in between yada yada is, the one simple narrative for all our lives is, I slept, I got tired, I woke up. I got tired of being awake, I went to sleep. Then I slept and I got tired of sleeping, then I woke up. Rinse and repeat. Then, second big event comes, we are completely thrown off, we don't know what to do. Yeah. So living is dying, dying is living. And so if we know how to skillfully understand this life, then we can skillfully understand dying and death. And in skillfully understanding dying and death, we will know more about living and life. So this weekend we will not, be doing any kind of traditional learning or transmission of POA as a technique, But to me, more important than POA as technique is understanding that how we can pull, how we can go, how we can transition, whether it's from this moment of mind to the next moment of mind, whether from this set of emotions to next set of emotions, whether from this day to the next day, whether from this life to next life. If we know how to pull, how to go, how to transfer, then all transitions become no problem. I think most of you know, I was doing quite a number of traveling throughout the year pre-pandemic. It probably seems a lot to some of you, but then compared to some other people, it's not that much. I look at these frequent flyer programs, and despite my flying, when I look at the levels of flying, I'm like, who are these other people? Right? That is in level 2 and level 1. I'm in level 3. Believe it or not. And between level 3 and level 2, it's like heaven and earth. I'm like, who are these level 2 people? And level 1, what are they? But each time when you're standing in line getting on a plane, for sure there's level 2 and level 1 people, You're like, oh my God. They're not unicorns, they're real, I don't know, how these people. Anyway, I think they're corporate people, and so corporate people, they fly business and first, and that, it's nature of how, things are. Our economy stacked that way. But anyway, that's a distraction point. The main point was so I was traveling a lot, and so each time you have to pack, you have to get ready, and then, you have to not only plan for where you're going, you have to plan for where you're leaving. So you have to settle all of that. And so it can, get kind of like I've always said, once I'm on the other side of security, then, relax, Up until getting to the other side of security, it's very unsettled, But it was very helpful when at one point during one of these planning and packing and this and that, do I have everything and this and that, I had this realization, like for this power, right, for this going, for this transferring, at the end of the day, when you come right down to it, if you don't have enough time, if you cannot plan well enough, you cannot da 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 da. At the end of the day, if I turn up at right that security to cross to the other side, if I have three things, then I'm basically okay. That was so liberating to know. Yeah? If I have three things, I'm fine. My ID. If I'm flying within the US, then my driver's license. If I'm leaving the country, my passport. So ID, non-negotiable. Make sure you have it. Phone. These days, non-negotiable. It can get me all sorts of information I need. It can get me to communicate with people who can get me more information and help if I need. The second. Third element, a credit card that works. I was like, these are the three jewels of traveling. If I have these three jewels, I am protected. So likewise, we need to figure out what are the three jewels that we need to have for our power, for our going from this life to next life. The rest, it's nice to have. And it's good if you plan well enough, for traveling. Yeah. Your favorite snack, your this, your that, maybe 2 copies of the New Yorker, so that you can read during the, 48 hours of traveling. It's nice to have, but not necessary. You have the 3 jewels of traveling, you can go anywhere. So likewise, here, if we plumb into the depths of the teachings and recognize what are the essentials that we need to have, then whether we are going from one set of emotions to another set of emotions, from one day to another day, from one moment to another moment, from this life to next life, when we have that clear, then we can be settled. Then so much of the stress that comes with transitions and change begin to feel less powerful, less stressful, less of an issue. Yeah? But even though we're not going to be learning any specific poa techniques, but that poa practice I will use parts of it in our weekend program this weekend to kind of again help anchor what we're going to be doing. Yeah. So to that end, I have included a poa lineage supplication, a poa lineage prayer. So in your text, if you look for it, around page 18, 19, somewhere around there, you should see it, I think. The version that I just sent you is 8:19. Otherwise, it's like 18, 17, somewhere around there. It's the Drigong Poa lineage prayer. Yeah? So I've extracted that from the Drigong Kagyu Poa. Drigong Kagyu is the lineage of Tibetan Buddhism that I'm a part of. So then in this lineage, we have the Drigong Poa lineage prayer. So I've included that Drigong Poa lineage prayer there. And this, again, it's a reference point. And as with lineage prayers, many names are given. And then some of us, or many of us, will be like, who are these people? All these names that I don't know. I think it's wonderful if we know the life stories of each of them, but often we don't know. Not just because we're not Tibetans. Even for Tibetans, often some of the names, it's more clear who they are, and some of the names are more obscure. But the point of the lineage prayer isn't necessarily about knowing all the names and who they are, but rather to be able to see that and to appreciate and to rely on the knowledge that we are not doing this all alone. Yeah, we are not needing to be Lone Rangers completely. Even Lone Ranger had his Tonto. Yeah? And so we need not do this all by ourselves. That there is a lineage of, and each name on this chronology of names, names arranged in a chronological order, each of these names signify a whole generation of people who have practiced skillful, effective going, skillful, effective transferring, successful transferring, successful transitioning. Whether it's transitioning from an unskillful state of mind to a skillful state of mind, transitioning from a difficult situation to a situation of freedom, transitioning from being bound to being free, transitioning from this life to next life. There were and there are so many who have successfully done them. And we are walking in their footsteps. Really, fundamentally, that's all we need to know. So even those names, we hear each name and we say, another generation. Another generation. Another generation. And finally, up to now my generation. Now my time. Now my, likewise, success in mastering the art of going. What was it? The art of the deal, or what was that? The art of going here. Yeah. This is the art of going with no exaggeration. Just knowing how to go. And will we succeed in going or not, and going to the right place, so to say, yeah? In a way, it depends on us. What does it mean it depends on us? It depends on, are we willing to go? It is said that the Buddhists, meaning the awakened ones, not just Siddhartha Gautama, of course, for Buddhists, that is our common reference point, the Indian prince Siddhartha Gautama, who lived maybe 2,500, 2,600 years ago. He's our common reference point for all Buddhists, that is an awakened one. But to be awake is not, the exclusive claims of just Siddhartha Gautama. We said many became awake before him, many became awake during his time through his guidance, and many more became awake after he lived. So, Buddha, to achieve the state of Buddha, to go. And the Buddhas, all those who have succeeded in doing that, their compassion for us is still present, still very present and available. So this is one important emphasis in Powa. So Powa practice, Powa the meditation practice, the technique, yeah. And again, in all traditions of Powa, they said we need to develop confidence, or religious language, faith, devotion. Devotion to what? Faith and devotion to the compassionate power of the Buddhists. And then particularly, Powa that involved Amitabha, this Buddha called Amitabha, and his pure land called Sukhavati. Sukhavati means the happy land. Sukha is happiness. Vati is like a realm, the realm of happiness. So in a way you could say this is a metaphor for complete freedom. Freedom from suffering, freedom from confusion, freedom from ignorance. And there is this Buddha called Amitabha. Amitabha means boundless light, boundless illumination. Ignorance is the fundamental problem, according to the Buddha. So boundless illumination means freedom from ignorance, freedom from confusion, freedom from delusion, freedom from illusions. So it's said that all those who are already Buddhas, their constant compassion is present and there. And their compassion relentlessly are pulling us towards them, towards this state of being awake. So then you say, therefore, why am I still not awake? Fundamentally, we refuse. Yeah, we refuse. So artistically, a Japanese artist, very famous painting, I included in this. You see it? Like right before this page? You see what's going on? This is Japanese humor. They have the Buddha, Amitabha, yeah, exerting great strength, even 1 foot down, to give more traction. And the two bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara and Mahastama Prapta, one is like, like prodding from the back, almost scooping you to the Pure Land. And the other is with Amitabha, like pulling you to the Pure Land, So that is how strong their compassion is. And yet, we're like, no, I don't want to go. So no way to really Powa to go if we don't want to go. It's like saying, despite all your claims that you want to go, you don't. So then what to do, We say, I don't want suffering, I don't want suffering. It's like, no, your actions are telling me otherwise. Right? Which is all of us. I include myself, like, I don't want to suffer, I don't want to suffer. It's like, actually, based on the evidence, you do want to suffer. I want happiness, I want happiness. Looking at the evidence, you don't have a case here. Right? So these are all, these foundational matters. So foundational matters. It matters that we get clearer and clearer understanding about the fundamental nature of all phenomena, of all experiences, of all the comings and the goings.